Thanks for coming. What we're proposing is that we'll have a variety of speakers. I'll just do a couple of introductory remarks. We'll work our way through the speakers on the agenda. We have someone calling in to speak. And certainly if you've got a question that is urgent when someone says something, let's deal with that then. But ideally, we'd like to turn it into a panel session after all of the speaking's being done so that we could look more in depth at any items that you'd like to talk about. So in terms of process, I'm sure that people know where the washroom is, just out to the left here. We're not going to be too concerned if people need to get out to get a drink or some snacks, feel free to do that. We are recording. You should be able to see from this mic anything that that is being provided electronically should show up there attached to this mic. So we hope that that will stay with us throughout this. So I guess my opening remarks are really about Sackville. We talk about Sackville as a different kind of small town, and that to me, one of the features of that difference is how citizens regard knowledge and learning, how it values education. Obviously, there's roles played by 3 schools and a university right in our midst, and that quantifies into a lot of numbers that are quite impressive. We have over 700 direct jobs attached to the education sector here in town. There's well over a $50 million a year budget in those areas. Mount A students are estimated to spend over $25 million a year in town as part of their life here. And over $100 million has been invested in Mount Allison capital alone in the last 10 or 12 years. Much of that is implemented by local contractors as well. So, but it's the value of knowledge and learning goes beyond just those numbers. It came through to me when we were first, it's almost a year that our council's been on task here. And one of the things we first did was talk about a strategic plan for what we're going to do for the next 5 years, what are the priorities. And the value of education came through very, very clearly when we talked about what the town should be looking at, what it should be doing. It's valued in many ways. Right through from early childhood, we heard about through to this Tantramar Seniors College, and individuals using and talking about the value of education in their lives and in their learning of their lives. I also note that recently we heard it in a business context where there's someone who's interested in putting a multi-million-dollar, well over $10 million investment in town. And one of the questions we asked, or I asked, was, I'm glad here, but why here? And one of the answers was, because we know you've got the people that we want to employ. We know that they want to have the knowledge to do the kind of work we want them to do, and we know that we'll be able to hire those people for a long period of time. So the value of learning and education is not only within families locally or within the community, it's also in the business sector that's looking at us. And I think what's important here in that context is so much talk over many years about how global disruption is happening in so many elements of our society. And it is. And it's happening right here in New Brunswick. It's happening right here in Sackville. Families are smaller. They're composed differently. There are more learning needs presenting in schools in every year about what children need to be addressed and what adults need to be addressed. Services have displaced blue-collar jobs to a great extent. We're living longer. That means we have different interests and different needs as well. Markets are truly global, as we're seeing every day. When someone signs an executive order, something else is changing at somebody's whim and communicated to us in an instant, because communications are so interconnected now. I give an example. Well, I was in Labrador, and my phone came on. I got a warning that Lawrence Street had just flooded. So I'm getting messages like that instantaneously somewhere else in the country or even around the world. So all of us have to look at that, and businesses now are truly getting footloose. We've talked about that concept for a long period of time, but I think you're now seeing where that business can be truly footloose. The enterprise that I just spoke about is an example of that. They could have gone anywhere else. But the qualities that Sackville displayed was why they wanted to come here. And for us, that's the different kind of small town we want to talk about, that's what we want to feature. How do we prepare our youngest to meet these modern challenges? And how do we prepare the community to do that as well? all of this is going to take addressing a whole bunch of multiple questions at various levels, and hopefully we'll talk about some of that here today and tonight. And my message is just more about the community at this point. For me, I think that most of the people of this town see learning and education and knowledge as a core part of the community. But we don't see it as that little red schoolhouse on the hill anymore. I think we see it bigger than that. I think we see it through many lenses. That sure, it's an economic driver now, but we also see the structure of schools and that as part of our civic structure, that it's something that we know how it works and we know how we're involved with it. We also see the physical as part of our community infrastructure. We have relationships with all the schools about using the fields and the gyms and after-hour meetings and nonprofit groups working through them. So we see it in many different ways. And I think we also see it through that all-encompassing throughout the ages. And it's illustrated to me by the Tantramar Seniors College, which has become a local initiative that is created around the Tantramar, well, bigger than that, all throughout the southeast here, where we have this wealth of knowledge of people who have, one of the data sets I heard recently was that 60% of our country's wealth will be in the pockets of people who are over 60. And they are looking for things to do, people to mentor, experiences, investments, and this is the group that we need to have as active participation in our community. So I also note that Julia's here. We've taken some of the first steps about trying to bring all those pieces together at the Sackville Commons, and we're looking forward to that facility and those people as an opportunity for some of this to happen. But one of the big places where it has to happen is in what we're going to talk about tonight in terms of the education system, the education structure, what role the community is going to play, and all of the details that are attached to that. So I guess in my wrap-up view, this is the place where I think that this town is ready for the conditions that, for success that are laid out in the New Brunswick Education Plan. And I think we're well prepared for it. I think there's a lot of interest in it, as we see. And I'd like to see how far we go. I think that the opportunities are immense and that this community is ready for it. So we want to be a different kind of small town. This is a key feature.